All right, welcome to the Young Turks. I am your host, Cenk Uygur. We've got a hell of a week for you guys and a hell of a show today. So, giant stories a little bit later in the program. Obviously, Bill O'Reilly's $32 million settlement. Jesus Christ, what did he do? I'll get into that a little bit later in the program. Then there's high drama at the DNC. Just when you thought the establishment couldn't sink any lower, dirty tricks like we have not seen, maybe ever, directed at progressives from the Democratic Party. So yes, that's an amazing story, and you'll only see it here, and I have that later for you in the program. And then, and also, company tells the Young Turks that we are not allowed to mock the president. Who is that company, and under what circumstances did they tell us that? That'll make your blood boil a little bit too. That's also later in the program. So don't miss any of this show. And as I think a lot of you know, if you're only watching for a little bit live or otherwise, get the whole 2-hour show commercial free by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join. All right, let's get started. Let's go over here. Okay. So we've got drama between John McCain and Donald Trump again. This time McCain with a clear shot against Trump, which I have to confess that I loved. Before we get to that, let me give you the context. You remember, of course, when Donald Trump was running for president, he had said about John McCain, quote, "He's not a war hero. He was a war hero because he was captured. I like people who weren't captured." Now, of course, he said that with the convenience of having avoided the Vietnam draft. And in fact, that's what John McCain's gonna talk about in a second. But I did wanna give you a little bit more context too about John McCain's service if you didn't know. In 1967, McCain was shot down over northern Vietnam during a bombing raid, breaking both his arms and right leg while ejecting from his plane. He spent the next 5 years in the notorious Hanoi Hilton prison camp, where he was repeatedly tortured and spent 2 years in solitary confinement. The scars remain with McCain today. He's unable to raise either of his arms above his shoulders. Trump has reportedly never apologized to McCain for the remarks. Now, that doesn't mean that John McCain is immune from criticism, far from it, and I have criticized him often on his hawkish stance when it comes to foreign policy. Everybody's allowed to disagree. But saying that he's not a war hero because he was captured from a guy who ran from the Vietnam War, that's a little bit too much for everyone. That's, by the way, not a little. It's way, way too much, apparently including for John McCain, who had this to say recently.
It was a tumultuous time, and most of it was bred by the conflict. And one aspect of the conflict, by the way, that I will never, ever countenance is that we drafted the lowest income level of America, and the highest income level found a doctor that would say that they had a bone spur. That is wrong. That is wrong. If we're going to ask every American to serve, every American should serve.
Ooh, shots fired, and not so friendly fire. The person who claimed to have bone spurs and was very rich at the time and his daddy got him out of the war, Donald Trump. Let me give you some of the background on that later. McCain tried to walk it back a little bit, like, well, I didn't say Donald Trump. No, you didn't. Bone spurs, bone spurs. So here's the history of Trump on this issue. When Trump was in college, as Salon explains, from 1964 to 1968, he received 4 draft deferments for education. But in 1968, during the height of the Vietnam War, Trump received a 1Y medical deferment for bone spurs on the heels of his feet. So the reference to bone spurs couldn't be any clearer. There's no other person known to have bone spurs and gotten out of the war because of that. The Rush Limbaugh got out of the war. He said he had a tail. I'm not kidding. Some sort of discharge built up near his anus, and that's why he couldn't go to Vietnam. Not kidding. Look it up. All of the right, almost all the right wing are filled with cowards who love to push your kids into war but didn't go themselves. Ted Nugent literally crapped himself to get out of the war. Look that up. It's amazing. Tom DeLay back in the day, hot tub Tom DeLay, said that minorities took his spots. Otherwise, he would have gone. Dick Cheney said he had better things to do. Later, he would have better things to do, like starting wars that your kids have to die for. So all those guys didn't go. Now, if that wasn't bad enough about Trump absolutely running from Vietnam and then saying he doesn't like people who were captured during that war he chose not to go to, then you have this bit of context. The president later told the New York Times that it was a minor malady and that he could not remember which foot had been injured. In other words, yeah, of course we made it up. We were rich. My daddy got me a doctor's note about some bone spurs I clearly didn't have. Believe it or not, back then he was actually an athlete. I know it seems a little weird these days, but yes, he was. It was a minor malady. In other words, it didn't exist, and he doesn't remember which foot it was in because it wasn't in either. Okay, now just to be absolutely over the top on this, Donald Trump later joked on the Howard Stern show that he did have his own personal Vietnam. What was it? Well, it was on the issue of sexually transmitted diseases. Quote from Donald Trump: "I've been so lucky in terms of that whole world," meaning the sexually transmitted diseases. "It is a dangerous world out there. It's scary, like Vietnam. Sort of like the Vietnam era. It's my personal Vietnam. I feel like a great and very brave soldier." Because back then he was going to so many orgies while other people were dying because they weren't as rich as him and as corrupt as him, that he felt like, well, I dodged a couple of bullets there in the different orgies that I went to, and I didn't get any STDs. And I'm a brave and great soldier, but John McCain isn't. I think that shot that McCain took at him is the very least he could do. It's about time, and I hope he does a hell of a lot more than that, because Donald Trump has richly deserved it. Okay, now let me go to a bizarre story out of Texas. Now, you all know that Hurricane Harvey hit Houston pretty hard and Texas overall. And so now there's relief efforts, still after all this time, there's a lot of cleanup to do and a lot of things to put back together. And it affects a lot of the towns and cities in that area. And they're gonna need some relief. And so luckily there's folks that are bringing that relief. But it turns out in one case, there is a really bizarre caveat that goes along with it. This is according to Law News. The city of Dickinson, Texas released on Monday a new application for relief funds to rebuild homes and businesses. Great. But it includes wording in which applicants promise not to boycott Israel. What? What does that have anything to do with the hurricane? What does it have anything to do with Texas? What are we talking about here? Are these folks insane? Oh, I know your house and your family were devastated, and we'll give you some money, but just make sure that you're not allowed to speak out against Israel from now on. What other country would this be okay for? Now remember though, you're not allowed to criticize Nicaragua. What? Why on God's green earth is that related to this? Let alone the fact that that's unconstitutional, which is what we're gonna get to next. So this is the exact language that was used for Hurricane Harvey repair grant application and agreement. Hold. Did I mention that I'm sick today? So, oh boy, there's gonna be a lot of coughing. You guys are used to this. All right, wish me luck. All right, now here's the warning. Verification not to boycott Israel. By executing this agreement below, the applicant verifies that the applicant does not boycott Israel and will not boycott Israel during the term of this agreement. Wow, really appreciate it. It's very clear. Not only are you not allowed to exercise your freedom of speech right now, you will not be allowed to exercise it for as long as this agreement is in place and you need money to take care of your family. We got you over a barrel now. Don't you dare say anything about Israel. Okay, now Andre Segura for the American Civil Liberties Union of Texas says the First Amendment protects Americans' right to boycott, and the government cannot condition hurricane relief or any other public benefit on a commitment to refrain from protected political expression. Dickinson's requirement is an egregious violation of the First Amendment. Now, Law News gives it more context here. They explained that the city attorney of Dickinson said they were just following the law according to KTRK, that's the local station down there. Governor Greg Abbott signed that statute in May. It stops Texas from doing business with companies involved in the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement against Israel over the nation's treatment of Palestinians. Now, you could have different opinions about whether that's the right thing to do in regards to Israel, but not if you're in the state of Texas. Their big government doesn't want you to have your own opinion, is not interested in your own opinion. It says you must follow Greg Abbott's opinions. What happened, right wingers? I thought you were against big government. This sounds like it is the definition of big government. And by the way, what happened? I thought you were a strict constitutionalist. It doesn't get any more constitutional than the First Amendment and our right to speak our minds, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. No, in the state of Texas, they don't like the United States Constitution, especially Republicans like Abbott there don't like it, and they want to take your rights away. And then God help you if you suffered a devastating hurricane, they'll help you, but only as long as you agree to give up your right to speak against their favored countries. And again, what does Texas have to do with Israel? I don't know that anybody knows that. Okay, now, Texas is not the only place doing it though. The ACLU recently sued over a similar law in Kansas. A former teacher was working on as a contractor for Kansas Department of Education's Math and Science Partnerships program. She refused to sign a form to certify she isn't boycotting Israel because of a church-led boycott of that country. Accordingly, the state declined to contract her. They took money out of her pocket because of her political speech. And wait a minute, I thought conservatives were all about don't interfere with the church. Oh, so you meant don't interfere with the church if it's hating gay people. Then don't interfere with the church. Let them hate the gays. Let them discriminate against the gays. Let them do whatever they want to the gays. Oh, but you want to speak out against Israel? No, then your church has no rights. I don't care about your church. I don't care about your religious beliefs. You will bow your head. And if not, you will lose contracts. You won't get relief. This is insanity. It can't get any more un-American than this. And by the way, first of all, it's an allegiance oath, which is also not constitutional, but it's not even to our country. It's to a different country. No, if you do not agree with the government of Sweden, well then you will lose all your contracts in Kansas. I don't know what the position of Sweden is, and by the way, it's on the issue of occupation. Again, you might not agree that BDS is the right way to do it, or you might think it's a wonderful way of pressuring Israel to end occupation. But imagine if Sweden is occupying other people, millions of people, and won't give them their rights, and they feel that that is oppression, and you have a different way to speak out against Sweden. They said, no, Kansas and Texas are obsessed about Sweden, and we will crush your church and your religious beliefs. And I don't care if you're in the worst kind of shape and we're pretending to help you with the hurricane, unless you swear allegiance to Sweden and whatever government they happen to have, either super left wing, super right wing, it doesn't matter. We bow our heads to Sweden. It would be insanity. This is insanity. Now, they went and tried to find an expert who would say that this is legal. They found one. The Washington Post found Eugene Kontorovich. And Eugene came up with a really interesting hypothesis. Let me read you his claim here. He says, refusing to do business is not an inherently expressive activity, as the Supreme Court held in Rumsfeld versus Fair. So he's saying, well, look, the boycott thing, it's not necessarily speech, because I can tie your speech and your opinions to your refusal to do business. But the lady in Kansas didn't have a business contract. The person that's recovering from Hurricane Harvey does not have a pre-existing contract with the government of Israel, even if it was relevant for Texas and Kansas to consider that. That's not the situation at hand. But there's an extra twist here. So this so-called legal expert is saying, to back up this insane law, now, if you are a corporation, you're a human being, and you have the right to speak, meaning spend money on politicians. So you as a corporation have the legal right to basically bribe politicians. It's legalized bribes because you're speaking as a human. But if you're an actual human, you're a human being and a citizen of the United States, you do not have the right to speak, because while you are speaking, you are not doing business with Israel. Our corruption in America is so profound, so insane, that we take these things that are not remotely believable by any person, and we twist and twist and twist until you get to the result that people want. And in this case, people in power. And people in power have decided that Israel is untouchable. It doesn't matter if their government is left wing, it doesn't matter if it's moderate, it doesn't matter if it's right wing, it doesn't matter what it does. You are not allowed to speak out against it. It doesn't matter if you're in Kansas or Texas or anything else. And church, we never cared about the church. The right wing was lying about your church all along. If the church has opinions that the right wing does not agree with, it will crush you and your religious beliefs. Okay, finally, let me get to an actual expert on this, Gregory Magarian, and he's a professor on this issue, and he says, quote, in my view, the anti-BDS clause in this application form is grossly unconstitutional. Whatever the merits or demerits of boycotting Israel, the decision to boycott is a matter of First Amendment rights. The government may not condition benefits on a recipient's agreement to waive or forego constitutional rights. That's called an unconstitutional condition, and it is clearly unlawful. And that is obvious to anyone who could read the United States Constitution. But if you need experts, the overwhelming majority of experts who actually are professors and constitutional law experts say, of course this is unconstitutional. The people in power have decided that they are going to do topsy-turvy logic on you in 1,000 different ways to bend you to their will. And it doesn't matter what situation you're in, you're gonna have to bow your head because we don't live in a democracy. If we lived in a democracy, is the state of Texas and Kansas really passing laws against your personal beliefs, your constitutional rights, your church beliefs, just to protect another government? Of course that's not happening in a democracy, but we don't have a democracy. We have a situation where it's government to the highest bidder. And again, look, man, you don't have to like or dislike Israel for this. You don't have to like or dislike the boycotts. I hope you're against the occupation. I hope you're for a two-state solution. What are you, for a permanent occupation? You'd like to crush the Palestinians forever? I guess there's some people in that category. I hope you're not in that category. But even if you are, it's not related to this. This is about our rights as Americans. And what Texas is doing is abhorrent and yes, deeply unconstitutional. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, the O'Reilly scandal, the devil is, in this case, almost literally in the details. If I believed in the devil, I think they would be literal. And then the DNC with one of the dirtiest tricks I've ever seen in politics. And yes, it's coming from the Democratic Party. I'll explain when we come back. Hey guys, we'll get to tweets a little bit later in the program because I got so much news for you guys. We got to go. So let's go over here, okay? Back on the Young Turks, obviously. All right. A new development in gun ownership. Now a lot of different liberal groups are picking up guns. So I understand the inclination to do this, but I think it's a terrible idea. So let me explain what is happening and then why I think it's a bad idea. So there's a new club in Rochester, New York called Trigger Warning Queer and Trans Gun Club. And this is a new one, but there are some others that have been around a little bit that I'll explain to you in a little bit as well. And Jake Allen explains why they're doing this. He says, it's a way to assert our strength. Often queer people are thought of as being weak, as being defenseless, and I think in many ways this pushes back against that. And I want white supremacists and neo-Nazis to know that queer people are taking steps necessary to protect themselves. Now, boy, that urge is super understandable. And as you see, the death in Charlottesville, and also a synagogue was at one point surrounded by neo-Nazis chanting Nazi chants, and in same thing in Charlottesville, that same protest. As you see situations like that, and then DeAndre Harris, an African-American man, was beaten so severely he had to get 10 staples in his head afterwards. So it's hard not to want to pick up weapons and defend yourself. And here in this case, they're learning how to shoot better, and then obviously some are buying guns. But at the same time, I'm afraid that it plays exactly into the NRA strategy. Everybody be panicked, grab a gun, which then leads to more deaths, which then leads to more panic, which then leads to higher gun sales. And I'm not sure that this is the road that we want to go down. But again, let me give you more details here on the different groups doing it. They say that, and this is the Associated Press, membership in the Pittsburgh chapter of the Pink Pistols, that's an LGBTQ-oriented gun group with chapters nationwide, bumped up after the presidential election and then after a white supremacist killed a counter-protester in Charlottesville this summer. So that's another LGBTQ group that has seen increased membership, but they're not alone. Then there's the Liberal Gun Club, a national organization, has seen its paid membership roughly double since the election to about 5,500, said Lara Smith of the group's California chapter. Now we've got LGBTQ people armed, we've got liberals armed, we already had the right wing armed, obviously. Now, of course, let's go to black folks. The National African American Gun Association gained 500 new members within 2 days after Charlottesville. Association President Philip Smith said the group went from 4 chapters to 45 in just the past year. Okay, by the way, that is when the right wing first, they're like, oh, LGBT people are getting guns, fine, liberals getting guns, isn't that cute? What, black people have guns? That's the first time that they got concerned. And now I'm putting that on them, that's a little bit of speculation, but that speculation is based on actual history. In California, we had very lax gun laws until the Black Panthers figured out, hey, you know what? We can walk into the state house with weapons. And it was perfectly legal, and they did. And the minute that black folks picked up weapons and walked into the state house, all of a sudden, California got way tougher gun regulation. You know who the governor was at the time that passed that legislation? That well-known liberal, Ronald Reagan. So on the one hand, again, boy, you want to defend yourself, I get it. And the other guys have guns. The neo-Nazis and the white supremacists have weapons, and they're not shy about it. I get it. And by the way, the minute black folks pick up guns, all of a sudden we're probably going to lead to more gun control. So that would be lovely, in my opinion. Okay, I get it. That being said, I give you the same rationale that I give the right wing. It's not a good idea. You're far more likely to get somebody in your own house killed. This whole idea of the intruders breaking in the middle of the night and then you're going to defend yourself almost never happens. But I'll show you the numbers of what actually does happen. Accidental shootings between 2005 and 2010, 3,800 people died just from accidents. I'm not talking about homicides where you got mad at your wife or your husband and boom, in that moment you killed them. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about suicides, which is a giant number. Just accidental shootings leading to deaths, leading to injuries in 2010 alone, 606. And then victims under the 25 years of age is 1,300 or so as well. So That's a lot of people dying because there was a gun in the house. Guns don't make you safer, they make you far less safe. So as much as I understand the urge to want to pick up guns, if you're in these groups, I don't think you're helping yourself at all. And when I say that to the right wing, it's not a trick. It's not to like, oh, we'll get the right wing to disarm and it'll be great. No, it's because I don't want them shooting themselves either. I don't want someone that's young in that household to get shot by accident either. Or sometimes it works the other way, where a kid accidentally pulls a trigger and kills his parents. We've done that story endless times. I don't want it happening to the right wing. I don't want it happening to the left wing. I don't want it happening to anyone. And the more there are guns around, the more it'll happen. That is a fact. So just be careful. And the only people celebrating this whole trend overall are the gun manufacturers that fund the NRA in the first place. They look at a story like this, and yeah, maybe they get concerned about parts of it, but overall they think mission accomplished. Higher gun sales, which will almost certainly lead to more deaths, which will lead to more panic, which will lead to more gun sales. Don't feed into that beast. Okay, now we go to Bill O'Reilly. Okay, buckle up. New York Times with another story about sexual harassment settlements regarding Bill O'Reilly. Now remember, he'd already settled 5 cases. This is number 6. And this one he settled personally with us for a stunning amount of money. This did not come from Fox News. They knew about it. They claimed they didn't know what the number was, but they knew that it happened and they gave him a big contract anyway. So let's get to all the details, stunning details. As the Times reports, last January, 6 months after Fox News ousted its chairman amid a sexual harassment scandal, the network's top-rated host at the time, Bill O'Reilly, struck a $32 million agreement with a longtime network analyst to settle new sexual harassment allegations, according to 2 people briefed on the matter, an extraordinarily large amount for such cases. Gretchen Carlson, who got $20 million from Fox News on similar charges against Ailes and the company overall, said nobody settles for $32 million if they didn't do it. That seems to be unassailable logic. Now you could disagree and go, oh yeah, he's rich. He can throw around $32 million for false charges, because Bill O'Reilly, he's a wilting flower. I mean, he wouldn't want to fight false charges, right? Only way he settles is if those charges were absolutely true. More details on what they were. Although the deal has not been previously made public, the network's parent company, 21st Century Fox, acknowledges that it was aware of the woman's complaints about Mr. O'Reilly. They included allegations of repeated harassment, a non-consensual sexual relationship, and the sending of gay pornography and other sexually explicit material to her, according to people briefed on the matter. Look, there's a part of that I care deeply about and a part I don't care about at all, okay? I don't care what kind of pornography he was sending to this person. If it was consensual, that's their business, not my business. And by the way, they say gay pornography, I don't know what that means. If you're thinking I do, okay, it could mean as in straight, not straight male, gay male pornography. It could mean as in gay female pornography. I believe that some straight men have, from time to time watched lesbian porn, okay? So it is not my defense of Bill O'Reilly. I just want you to know that I'm being as fair as possible. The non-consensual sex, that is 1,000,000,000% unacceptable. So if it's consensual, let them watch whatever porn they want to watch. Who cares? Because we're not moralists like Bill O'Reilly and Fox News. We don't talk about family values and pretend that we have better values than you do and we're going to judge you day in and day out. That's Bill O'Reilly's job. But if it's non-consensual, hell no. And so you're telling me Fox News, you know about this, and then you gave him the contract? Oh boy, all right, let's get to those details. It was at least a 6th agreement and by far the largest made by either Mr. O'Reilly or the company to settle harassment allegations against him. Despite that record, 21st Century Fox began contract negotiations with Mr. O'Reilly and in February granted him a 4-year extension that paid $25 million a year. So they're like, oh Bill, this is your 6th case that you have settled for women that said they were sexually harassed by you, and you gave them money because you were afraid they were right, or for whatever reason you were afraid. And now, despite the fact that I know that, I'm gonna turn around and give you $100 million contract anyway. Gee, I wonder what 21st Century Fox's values are. Are they the same as your family values? And maybe for the old right-wingers like Rupert Murdoch, he thinks, yeah, of course. Look, back in the good old days, we used to be able to do whatever we wanted to women. So would I give O'Reilly $100 million knowing that he's a serial sexual harasser? Of course I would. He did. The proof's in the pudding. In January, the reporting shows Rupert Murdoch and his sons Lachlan and James, the top executives at 21st Century Fox, made a business calculation to stand by Mr. O'Reilly despite his most recent and potentially most explosive harassment dispute. Their decision came as the company was trying to convince its employees, its board, and the public that it had cleaned up the network's workplace culture. At the same time, they were determined to hold on to Mr. O'Reilly, whose value to the network increased after the departure of another prominent host, Megyn Kelly. Oh my God, they cared more about the money than they did about actual human beings and whether they were forced into sexual acts by their star host. It was a business decision. Meanwhile, they're going around telling everybody, oh yeah, Ailes, that was an aberration. We cleaned this thing up. But no, Fox News is great now. It's a wonderful place to work. Meanwhile, they secretly know, oh my God, O'Reilly just had another giant settlement for another sexual harassment case. Who cares? Is he making us money? Good, bring him in. Now, there were other business considerations, and that's the only thing that eventually got O'Reilly fired anyway. When we found out about this. So a little bit of that from the New York Times. But by April, the Murdochs decided to jettison Mr. O'Reilly as some of the settlements became public and posed a significant threat to their business empire, okay? Now, it's because they were trying to buy another media organization in the UK, and meanwhile, advertisers started dropping out of O'Reilly's program. They're like, well, now we're making less money from the sexual harasser who has settled for non-consensual sex, okay? And it might cost us money over in the UK for another part of our business empire. Oh, listen, I got it. We'll pretend to be moral, and we'll have all the other hosts still talk about family values. Meanwhile, we'll push for war on air. We'll push for all these different things that are despicable, and the death penalty, and all these things where people die. We'll call that family values, but now we'll turn around and fire O'Reilly and pretend we did it for moral reasons. Hilarious, Murdochs, hilarious, okay? Now, the woman involved is Miss Wheel. I don't want to talk too much about her. She's dragged into this, but you got to know who she is in order for you to understand the context of this. Because she's a legal analyst and she was on Fox News for 15 years. So let me give you a little bit of context here from the Times. The settlement with Miss Wheel was more than 3 times the amount of any of Mr. O'Reilly's previously known deals. In 2004, he had settled a lawsuit with a producer, Andrea Macris, for about $9 million. Publicly known harassment settlements involving Mr. O'Reilly have now totaled about $45 million. There might be other ones we don't know about, but so far, he has paid out of pocket $45 million to settle case after case after case. And in the Andrea Macris case, we do know the details because the phone conversations were leaked. And he would call her up and without any of her participation or permission, begin to masturbate over the phone and telling her how he's doing it and how he'd like to rub loofahs and falafels all over her. And it's just, look, again, if you're gonna have phone sex and it's consensual, I don't care what your sandwiches you're smearing on each other. But she didn't ask for it. She didn't tell you it was okay. You just call her out of the blue without her participation. You can tell it's on the phone call. She doesn't participate at all. And he just keeps going and going and going. And this is a person who works with him. And he is clearly in a position where he can affect her job. It's like, you stay on the phone and you listen to this. What does that remind you of? And by the way, another executive, Harvey Weinstein, who told a woman when she didn't refuse to have sex with him, well then just shut up and stand there as he masturbated in front of her. Jesus Christ. Okay, family values, guys. All right, and Weinstein is theoretically liberal. O'Reilly pretends to have family values and is clearly conservative. So, although the matter had been settled confidentially, Mr. O'Reilly's lawyers were concerned about keeping the dollar figure secret. Mr. Newman provided the company with a document that informed them of the deal but did not include a dollar figure. That makes News Corp's or 21st Century Fox's claims about not knowing the number figure a little bit more believable, but does it really matter that much? What if it was for only $3 million or only $12 million, only $24 million? Would it make a difference? If the allegations in this case are true and O'Reilly has settled that case knowing that he does not want to dispute it, he does not want to go to open court and say that it's not true. These are the Fox News guys, the O'Reilly guys, they love a fight. They start fights day in and day out. You think O'Reilly's gonna shy away from that fight? The only way he's gonna do it is because it's true. Okay, the first time that Bill O'Reilly had Will on his show, he's almost doing it on air. This is the exchange that happened. He said, hey, you know, Liz, I got you this job. You know that. She says, I know you did, I know. O'Reilly says, so you owe me big. And she says, no, no, no. Which, by the way, pretty much defined their relationship going forward if these charges are true. And again, he paid $32 million, probably because he thinks, oh yeah, they're true, and he didn't want it getting out. Okay, Mr. O'Reilly also made suggestive remarks to Ms. Wheel on the air. During one segment on his radio show in 2005 about a strip club, he suggested that she learn how to dance for a $10,000 tip. Now, if they're friends, old friends, and that's the kind of show he's doing, you say, hey, they're having fun, that's their banter, that's their business, not my business. She is a legal analyst. She didn't ask to have those kind of conversations. She literally says on air, no, no, no. And then he's talking about how she should go make tips at a strip club. Real classy. Look, you could do, if it was just that, again, you could say he's a pig and leave it at that. But once you get into non-consensual sexual situations, hell no. He should have been gone immediately when they found out about it. Okay, dated January 7th. It called for, now this is the actual contract, the settlement terms. It called for Ms. Wheel to be paid over a period of time to ensure her silence. In return, she agreed not to sue Mr. O'Reilly, Fox News or 21st Century Fox. And all photos, text messages, and other communications between the two would be destroyed. But wait, Bill, if you're right that it's not true, which he now absolutely insists, why would you want to get rid of the evidence? Wouldn't you want to keep the evidence? Because the evidence is going to prove you right. No, part of the settlement was shred the evidence. Whatever you do, light that evidence on fire. Gee, I wonder who was right and who's wrong. I can't quite tell. In recent weeks, Mr. O'Reilly has made several public appearances to promote a new book, as the Times explains. He said on the Today Show that he never sent a lewd text or email to a Fox News employee, that his conscience is clear, and that a, quote, political and financial hit job brought him down. If you never sent any of those text messages, why does it say in the settlement, destroy the text messages I sent you? Oops. So how in the world is he going to defend the indefensible? Just when you thought it couldn't get worse for Mr. Family Values, he's going to hide behind his kids. I wasn't going to do this part, but he literally brought it up over half a dozen times, some of which you'll see here. I mean, we might hit that count just on the audio that I'm going to share with you. But overall, in all of his defenses, possibly over a dozen times, anytime the charge is brought up, he hides behind his kids. Listen.
This experience. I've been in the broadcast business, journalism business for 43 years. I've never had one complaint filed against me by a coworker in any human resources department in 43 years. And that encompasses 12 different companies. So all of a sudden, all this stuff happens, and the pain it brings to my children is indescribable. Indescribable. And I would give up my life to protect my children, but I find myself not being able to protect them because of things that are being said about me, their father. And I will go back to my children. So when situations arose, we handled them as methodically and as responsibly as we could without putting my children in grave danger.
Nobody brought up your kids. And if they did, I would chastise them. Say, what do his poor kids have anything to do with this guy? They don't have anything to do with him. They're not connected to him. They didn't have it. Jesus, don't get him involved in this. He's the only one bringing up his kids. And he keeps going, oh my God, this is gonna hurt my kids. Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you did the non-consensual sex. Maybe you should have thought about that before sexually harassing one woman after another that worked with you. But when you were doing that, and you were doing the loofah and the falafel and everything else, then you didn't worry about your kids. Now that you've been caught, all of a sudden, oh, my kids. Oh, yeah, that's really genuine, Bill, and that's really classy. Look, I'm gonna leave out what his kids actually said about him in his divorce settlement, because I don't wanna go there. But he does it over and over again. Here, listen, now that was with the New York Times earlier, this is with Glenn Beck.
You've got to understand how much pain this brings children. And I thought I could spare my children that. I'd do anything for my children, anything to protect them. I give up my life for my children.
I'd do anything except not sexually harass women at work. That I won't do. It's so gross that he's hiding behind his kids. What a terrible, terrible guy. And then that argument earlier about, oh, nobody ever brought it to human resources. That's because you paid them millions of dollars. And the idea that technically they didn't go to human resources, that's your one big aha. You paid one of them $9 million, you paid another one $32 million. I think that's a little bit more evidence than they didn't technically go to human resources at the right time. Okay, one last thing now. We're not the only ones that are skeptical about the number and how gigantic it is if he didn't actually do it. Even Glenn Beck was skeptical. And then listen to Bill O'Reilly's non-answer here.
Okay, you can settle, but $32 million coming out of your own pocket, nobody does that.
Right.
So
what do you want me to say? I'm not. The only comment I could make on that issue without getting the thing back into a legal arena would be the first article that the New York Times wrote, quoted figures and added them up, and it was wildly wrong. But I can't confirm or deny anything, because once I do that, then it goes back into the legal arena, which you don't want, and they know that.
Was this settlement by you alone, or was Fox involved?
I can't, Beck, as I told you off the camera, I know you have to ask the questions for your audience. I can't comment on any specific case at all. If I could, I would, but I cannot. I know it's frustrating.
No, it's really frustrating because
it is very frustrating for me. You can imagine me sitting here, all right, being accused of everything under the sun, and the end game is let's link O'Reilly with Harvey Weinstein. Let's make him that. That's what we want to do. But unless I want another 7 or 8 years of constant litigation that puts my children in a kill zone, I have to maintain my discipline.
There he goes again. Children in the kill zone. What on God's green earth are you talking about? So bottom line is 32 million, that's kind of hard to understand if you didn't do it. Quote, what do you want me to say? And then he's like, oh man, I can't because of the legal situation. But it's not like your money's on the line in terms of like, they didn't pay you, you paid them. You paid them so that it wouldn't be out in the open. So if you want, you can talk about it all you want. You're the one that said in those settlements, you are, whether it's Wheel or anyone else, you're not allowed to talk about this in public. It didn't say you're not allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to talk it all you want because you're the one who did it. You're the one who paid them the money so they wouldn't talk. Totally disingenuous. This is who Bill O'Reilly is. He's a sick, sick man. And for all those years, for decades, News Corp paid him to lecture you about family values and how you weren't good enough and that he was gonna judge your values. Meanwhile, he goes home and does this. So the next time somebody talks to you about family values and how they are more moral than you, remember Bill O'Reilly, remember Roger Ailes, and what they were doing in private. They don't mean a word of it. They're the world's biggest hypocrites. All right, one more story for you in this segment. Sorry, guys. Okay. So Donald Trump recently got himself into a mess about Gold Star families and whether he's written letters to them or called them. And then he lashed out against President Obama and former presidents. I have an update on that story for you guys. And if it wasn't so disturbing, it would be funny. But before we go to the update, in case you didn't see, there's the context of when it was first brought up. They asked him about 4 service members who had died in Niger in an ambush by ISIS, and whether he'd reached out to them and why he's not talking about it. And this was his initial answer.
Why haven't we heard anything from you so far about the soldiers that were killed in Niger, and what do you have to say about that?
I've written them personal letters. They've been sent or they're going out tonight, but they were written during the weekend. I will, at some point during the period of time, call the parents and the families, because I have done that traditionally.
I have done it, but they'll go out later. But I will do it, and I have done it. As soon as I saw that clip, if you guys saw that edition of the Young Turks, I told you that's nonsense. He hasn't done it. If he had done it, he would have just said, "I did it. Are you crazy? I did it. I did it really great. It was a beautiful letters and beautiful calls that I had made to them." It was obvious he hadn't done it. I've got the facts on that for you in a second, but let me show you one more where he equivocated.
Traditional way, if you look at President Obama and other presidents, most of them didn't make calls. A lot of them didn't make calls. I like to call when it's appropriate, when I think I'm able to do it. They have made the ultimate sacrifice. So generally, I would say that I like to call. I'm going to be calling them. I want a little time to pass. I'm going to be calling them. I have, as you know, since I've been president, I have.
I have and I will, but I've sent the letters. I've sent the letters and the calls when I can, when I'm not busy golfing, okay? So, did he actually send the letters? All right, here comes the hilarious update from HuffPost. Multiple families of military service members killed in the line of duty are now getting rush-delivered letters from President Donald Trump days after Trump claimed he had called the immediate families of all service members who had been killed since he took office in January. In other words, for the billionth time in a row, caught with his hand in the cookie jar, going, "Oh, okay, yeah, letters, yeah, of course. I wrote the letters. I already wrote them. I'm going to write them." And of course, he doesn't write any of the letters, is my best guess. Anyway, he sends them out in a panic. More details. The Atlantic reported Saturday that their reporters had spoken to 3 Gold Star families who received condolence packages from the president this week. Funny coincidence. The Associated Press reported it had reached out to families of all 43 people who have died in military service since Trump became president, but only made contact with about half the families. Some families told AP they were comforted by Trump's call, while others hadn't heard from the president at all. A couple of specific instances here from the AP. The family of Army Sergeant Jonathan M. Hunter, who died in a suicide bombing in Afghanistan in August, was promised a call from the president, but instead heard from Vice President Mike Pence. Brittany Harris, the widow of Army Specialist Christopher Michael Harris, who also died in Afghanistan in August, said she had not heard from the president either. The Associated Press identified at least 2 other Gold Star families who had wanted but did not receive a call from the president. I did it. I mean, I kind of did it, didn't do. Okay, fine, I'll send it now. And he can't help himself. Nonetheless, here he is doubling down.
That question, and for the most part, to best of my knowledge, I think I've called every family of somebody that's died, and it's the hardest call to make, and I said it very loud and clear yesterday. The hardest thing for me to do is do that. Now, as far as other representatives, I don't know. I mean, you could ask General Kelly, did he get a call from Obama? But I have called, I believe everybody, but certainly I'll use the word virtually everybody, where during the last 9 months something's happened to a soldier. I've called virtually everybody. I've gone to Dover.
Virtually everybody. The guy has no bounds at all, man. You think we can't see the date on the letters? You think that the reporters aren't going to call the families and ask them, "Hey, did you get a call or did you not get a call? Did you get a letter or did you not get a letter?" He doesn't care about you. If it's about him and his ego, okay, fine, he'll do something. If not, he's not gonna do it. And so he only sent those letters in a rush because his hand, again, caught in the cookie jar. If it wasn't, God knows if he would have ever sent them. All right, I gotta take a little break here. When we come back, the dirty tricks from the DNC, and a company tells the Young Turks they're not allowed to mock the president. I will give you the details of that when we return. Now, you guys are gonna think, especially my early behind the scenes footage, like I already went and looked at the comments in the member section. You guys, oh, he's high, he's drunk. I swear to you, I'm not. Well, I just tell you if I am, right? And so I get goofy in the behind the scenes stuff.
What's the need for the butter with this pretzel? This is already super fattening it up. You don't need to put butter on this thing. Why'd they make me do it, Bitsy? Why'd they make me do it?
Hey, I'm just saying that this is known as the rear end guy. There's no way that every person he knows doesn't call him the rear end guy. I want you guys to see if you could see the lightning bugs. Whoa. Light them up. Light them up.
Is it true, Ritzy? I will now watch it later.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Imagine him, isn't it? Hey, Kiki Cat. Kiki Cat. All right, this is Kiki Cat signing out.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts. And it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
You said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before.
We're both sick. Don't make any jokes about us getting sick together. It happened on separate occasions. Jason was in Vegas. I was in LA. That's what happened.
The subscription to this channel is free. The videos are free. Everything is free. I don't know why I get paid.
We don't know. We're having fun. You remember that 3-letter word? Fun. I crave your name, and I'm going to destroy you. Respect my name.
It's the money, the cars, the clothes, and that's what basketball brags about, that's what football brags about, that's what rap brags about. Those are the items of respect in these communities.
The graphics package at TYT Sports is better than FS1 and Fox.
We pay him in graphic transitions.
Look, what happened?
First of all, I grab candy all the time. Let's be fucking real.
Where his ball, his bitch.
But it is wrong that when people take a stand and fight for social justice, that somehow that is turned against them in America.
Wow, can't speak. Am I high? No, but maybe.
Jason Rubin. Looking great these days.
My girlfriend says the same thing.
I know.
A lot of vagina.
A lot of vagina.
Yes! Subscribe to TYT Sports. Beep, 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 beep.
All right, back on the Young Turks. The mathematician says, Jenks back. Missed you, dude. I appreciate it, but I was only gone Friday. I was here all week, including first hour of Thursday, but yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you, man. Daniel Wilker says, my dad had bone spurs. The Air Force shaved them off. See, if you're not connected like Donald Trump, bone spurs, no problem. Shave that thing right off. You're Donald Trump, or you're free to go. Okay, great point. And Brian Newton writes in, if you're too afraid to go fight in a war, just be decent and don't send other people into conflicts. Makes sense. It's not like we're saying, hey, you know what? It's crazy to be afraid of going to war and dying. That's not crazy at all. But then don't go around sending other people's kids to those needless wars. All right, Alex says, a bunch of my LGBT plus friends got guns after Orlando. So yes, it's a real trend. Alex, you're not wrong. It's happening all across the country. Rob Brown finally says, do you know what the court calls non-consensual sex when committed by the poor? Rape. When it's by the rich, well, we got a settlement and et cetera, and we'll call it non-consensual and move on. Okay. Unfortunately, good points. Yes. All right, now, let me give you the final two dramatic stories. Okay. So here at the Young Turks, every once in a while, we'll wear t-shirts, you'll see TYT mugs, and I had an old one here. Here, sure, fine, I'll show it to you, okay? It's a little worn out. We've used it a bunch of times. And so we thought, well, you know what? Football season's here and winter's coming. Got a cold drink. You're gonna want maybe put that drink or beer into the protective gear so that your hands don't get cold. Now I'm calling it protective gear and you're like, what are you talking about? It's because the word is so unfortunate. It's called a koozie. Okay, so here are some koozies we're planning to, sell at shoptyt.com. If you love the Young Turks, or you're just amused by the kofefe, you want to put your coffee in a kofefe or Jurassic Prick, etc. Well, that makes sense, right? We got a store. Okay, fine. So that part would be totally uninteresting. Well, we go to have it printed out, and BIC, which apparently now is in the publishing business as well as the pen business. The pen business still exists, told us no. What do you mean no? What do you mean? What does no mean? I mean, what a strange thing. I mean, you're not paying us, we're paying you. We want to pay you to print these out. So why no? Well, here's the statement. All items ordered, thank you, but we are unable to print your order. Per the terms and conditions in our catalogs, BIC Graphic reserves the right not to print any logo or message that is deemed inappropriate. Please let us know if you would like to revise your artwork, and we will place your order on hold until we receive new artwork. There are 2 imprints that we are unable to proceed with as they mock the current president. Well, here's my answer to that. Goddamn right they do, because we don't agree with the president. BIC Graphics, I got news for you. It's called America. We're allowed to have any opinion of the president that we like. God help you if we find out what you thought of the last president. Okay, anyway, maybe it's just a corporate decision and they're afraid of all powerful people and they say, oh my God, don't criticize the president. Maybe in Russia, maybe in Saudi Arabia, but here in America, yeah, we get to criticize the president, we get to mock the president. Like if they had said, hey, you know what, the language is inappropriate, that would also be absurd. God knows what they've printed in the past. But it would at least have a leg to stand on. But they didn't. No, they said, no, you're offending the poor sensibilities of our beloved president, so we won't print this stuff. So I assume that the 2 that they were most troubled with, I hope it wasn't resist or kofefe. I don't know, maybe they find that. Look, that's his word. If you think we're mocking him with his own word that he made up and later pretended was important. But I assume that they mean this one, bitchy rich. By the way, you can get that T-shirt, or you apparently can't get a koozie, but you could get a T-shirt or posters, etc. on shoptyt.com with this on it, because that we didn't need permission from BIC Graphic to print, or Jurassic Prick. I happen to think they're both fairly clever. I didn't come up with them, but I kind of love them. So we're not allowed to print those on a koozie in America because BIC Graphic would like to protect the sensibilities of the president? That's preposterous. Hey, it's their company, they can run it any way they like. But now you know, if Big Graphic thinks you're offending Donald Trump, they will not do business with you. They won't even take your money. Seems like a poor choice, but just wanted to let you know where they stand. Preposterous. All right, shoptyt.com. Okay. The next story I saved to the end because not only because it's important, but because I'm gonna get worked up enough that I don't think I'm gonna wanna do other stories in this hour. Okay, all right, here we go. Now recently there's been a lot of drama at the Democratic National Committee. There's some shakeups by the chair, Tom Perez. He removed some members of the executive committee, the rules committee, very important committees that might decide whether anyone but Tom Perez and a finance person gets to see their budget. Now their budget involves hundreds of millions of dollars, and a lot of that goes to consultants, Democratic consultants who are very, very powerful. My guess is that those are the folks that are behind this entire mess because they've got a lot of money on the line. But Tom Perez is their guy, and the establishment backed Tom Perez, and so people were removed. Off you go, James Zogby, you've been there for decades, you're gone, and many others. You're chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party, the New Hampshire Democratic Party, I don't care. If you oppose the establishment or Tom Perez, or if you were an Ellison supporter and a Bernie Sanders supporter, watch out, you gotta go. So a lot of people kicked out of those committees, and then there's these at-large appointments, and some people were removed from that. And then the DNC came back and said, it's okay, we put in diversity. Diversity of ideas, diversity of who they're backing, no. They're all pro-establishment. But diversity as in, one is transgendered, well, you kicked out someone who was transgendered. So how did you add diversity there? I don't care, I'm hiding behind diversity. Now, that was all bad enough when we reported that to you last week. This week, it's gotten way worse. So, what did they do? They floated a rumor that the most progressive people were actually targeting black women at the DNC. Where did you get that rumor? They planted it themselves. They can't point to a single person who was alleged to have said that, because there is no such person. So instead, they went to BuzzFeed News here, which I think, I gotta be honest, is a terrible job here. You're not supposed to print rumors because somebody came and wanted to plant a rumor with you. And they admit it's a rumor. So BuzzFeed News goes, okay, who do you want me to smear? All right, great, you wanna smear the Bernie people? Great, let's do that. So they quote, this is quoting BuzzFeed News itself, a rumor that pro-Bernie Sanders Democrats have proposed removing 3 prominent black women as at-large members of the Democratic National Committee set off a fury here at the party's fall meeting, lighting up tensions between anti-establishment progressives and Chairman Tom Perez as Democrats rushed late Thursday to find out where the rumor had come from and what motives drove it. These people keep pretending, and I'll tell you the source of some of those rumors a little bit later in this story, keep pretending that Bernie Sanders supporters, who are, by their own admission, the establishment says, we're too progressive, we're too liberal, we're not practical and pragmatic enough, but the most progressive people in the country are somehow racist and sexist. Now, some of the people that they removed were women, who cares? Some are minorities, who cares? It doesn't matter, we're gonna smear you. Okay, then show me one person who's actually against black women from the Bernie campaign, or these specific 3 black women. Nobody, it's just a rumor, it's just a rumor. Why would the Bernie people plant the rumor? That makes no sense at all. Why would they want to plant a rumor against themselves? No logic in that. Now, if you wanted to plant a rumor to smear the other side, and you had a couple $100 million in motivation to make sure nobody sees that budget, because then they might get mad that you're taking a huge percentage of it, whoever those Democratic consultants are that actually control the party, then what would you want to do? Let me hide behind minorities and spread a rumor, and I'll go to BuzzFeed News and they'll print it and get everybody all worked up. Now, one of the people that was removed from last week was James Zogby. Like I told you, decades with the Democratic Party. They explain here, James Zogby, a key Sanders ally and a longtime DNC member who found out he would lose a spot on the party's executive committee, was among several progressives who cast the move as a form of retaliation against those who do not support Perez in his bid for chair earlier this year. Well, yeah, that part is true. He supported Ellison, now all of a sudden he's off the executive committee. But did James Zogby say anything about black women? No, he didn't. Well, it doesn't matter, I'll just put his name out there and go, oh, golly gee. He didn't like being removed. But that's not the same as spreading the rumor. So then they have to go talk to him. By Thursday afternoon, 2 days after Perez announced his appointments, the rumor was this: Zogby and other pro-Sanders Democrats wanted to flout Perez's picks for at-large DNC members by proposing an alternate slate, one that would swap out 3 prominent black women. Now, again, there is absolutely no evidence that happened. So Zogby is asked about it and he goes, of course I didn't do that. That's preposterous, nobody did that. He explains he has known the 3 women, Daughtry, Moore, and Donna Brazil, for years. He said in large part through his work on the 1984 and 1988 Jesse Jackson campaigns. So the person who's theoretically against blacks is one of the most liberal guys in the Democratic Party, is himself a minority, supported Jesse Jackson for president, and is recently in trouble with the establishment because he supported Keith Ellison for as head of the DNC. Keith Ellison, who is also black. Wow, seems like a virulent racist to me. Preposterous. You see, the only thing they want to do is get us to talk about it so that they can say, I don't know, some people say this, some people say that, and then the smear is accomplished. But we're not gonna play that game. Instead, we're gonna out you for who you are and that you're doing the dirtiest tricks possible. These are the same people who planted the anti-Semitism charges against Keith Ellison. There's nothing they won't do to protect their money. It is the dirtiest tricks I've ever seen. Do they ever do it against Republicans? No. With the Republicans, they play patty cakes, and they lost over 1,000 state seats. They've lost 69 out of 99 state legislatures. They lost the House, they lost the Senate, they lost the Supreme Court, they lost the presidency to Donald Trump. Patty cakes with Republicans all day long. And then they go, oh, we're pragmatic. Pragmatic at what? You are miserable failures. And the minute anyone challenges you and says, we believe the Democrats can do better, we believe progressives can do better, and we believe we can beat Republicans, if we actually fight them, they turn around and fight you in the most vicious ways possible. Okay. Zogby continues to explain, I would never turn against those 3 women. That is not what I've done. These are friends of mine who I care about. And I simply find it deplorable that someone would start that rumor in order to create a deeper wedge to absolve themselves from the crappy decisions that they have made. Okay, then the DNC spokesperson comes out and goes, wait. I'm not done hiding behind diversity yet. So they say, we are proud of the unprecedented diversity of this year's slate at large DNC members. We must come together in unity and embrace our diversity in order to win elections up and down the ballot. But who argued against diversity? No one. You made that up. Who was our candidate? Who did I want to win the DNC race? Keith Ellison, who's black. So where is the lack of diversity? Who are the people who wanted to remove these 3 women? No one. No one. All you have is a rumor that you yourself planted. Okay. So Leah Daughtry is really mad. She goes up and gives a speech. Now, I don't know her motivations at all. I've never met her. I don't know her at all. And it's possible that she believes these rumors and is then incensed. If you believe the rumors, you would be incensed. I'd be incensed, right? So she comes up and gives a speech. She says, I have done the work. I have paid my dues and I have earned my seat at the table. And yet over the course of this meeting, some unnamed, shadowy, increasingly noisy faction of our party has suggested that I and a few of my like-minded friends are the wrong kind of Democrat to hold membership of the DNC. That somehow, maybe because of my race, maybe because of my gender, maybe because of the brashness that comes from the combination of the two, maybe because I actually had a history and institutional memory of our party, maybe because I chose to support the nominee of our party. I don't know what their reasons were. Maybe they didn't know that black women are the strongest loyalists and the most consistent voting bloc of the Democratic Party. Maybe they forgot that we show up when nobody else shows up. Well, if she genuinely believes that that rumor was planted by the Bernie faction, then I'd be mad too, and that would justify this speech. And I don't know her, so I don't know what she genuinely believes. But there is no proof that anyone actually wanted to get rid of her or a series of African American women, none whatsoever. But then she calls the other side, meaning the Bernie side, a noisy faction. Well, Hillary Clinton, with her army of media help, I would argue was a little noisier. With her paid trolls paid by David Brock during the primaries, I would argue were a little noisier. I would argue that a lot of the establishment has been very, very noisy as they just got rid of people. You claim that there is a rumor that somebody might have wanted to get rid of you with no evidence. The other side actually did get rid of people. They just got rid of them right in front of our eyes last week. And look, two can play at this game. Let's talk about the people that they have had problems with in the past. Okay, Keith Ellison, he's a Muslim. James Zogby, of Middle Eastern descent. From time to time, I have received criticism, also of Middle Eastern descent. Is that Trump-level bigotry? You're going to go after, and I was born in a Muslim family, I'm not agnostic now. If I connect the dots, it looks like 3 people from a certain religion or region, and you guys are all targeting them. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. Do you agree that there should be a travel ban, a Muslim ban? I don't know. Look, first of all, let me be super clear. I'm not putting any of that on Leah Daughtry. Again, I don't know her at all. And again, I would understand her frustration if she genuinely believed that that was happening. But I'm talking about the people who are planting this stuff. And by the way, she said, but I will say one last thing about the last sentence. She said, maybe they forgot that we show up when nobody else shows up. I'll tell you who didn't forget about African-American women showing up. That's Bernie Sanders. Let me show you a picture of him from decades ago. That's a civil rights protest that he showed up to. He's chained to an African-American woman. She showed up, he showed up, they showed up together, and he said, if you're going to arrest her, you're going to arrest me. He was the first guy to ever say, I'm with her. So the reason people like Bernie Sanders is because he showed up way before anyone else did. He defended those progressive values way before anyone else did. So if we want to talk about showing up, there's a reason why he has credibility. All right, now let's go to someone who doesn't have as much credibility on this issue. That's Tom Perez. Now, I talked about the consultants and the David Brocks and all these shadowy guys with all of their money. You want to talk about shadowy? Those are the shadowy guys. We're right here. We're right here. They get mad at me sometimes for saying things on air. I'm saying it in front of you. There's no rumors. There's no stabbing in the back. There's no going around people and planting things with friendly members of the press and smearing people and trying to ruin their reputations. Okay, we're right here. Now, on the other hand, Tom Perez, back during the primaries, he supported Hillary Clinton, nothing wrong with that. A lot of people supported Hillary Clinton. But he wrote a memo that we got because of WikiLeaks, and he was talking about Nevada, and he said, Nevada is an opportunity to fight back on so many levels. First, the current storyline is that she does not connect well with young voters. Given that Nevada is far more demographically representative of America, I am confident that Hillary Clinton can do well with all African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans. Don't forget the sizable population of Asian Americans in Nevada, including Filipinos. So far, nothing wrong with that at all. He's making an affirmative case for his candidate. Hey, you know what? I think Hillary connects great with these different demographic groups, and I think we'll show it in Nevada. Perfectly fine. But wait, there's a second sentence coming. It says, Emmy and the team have a good plan to attract all minority voters. When we do well there, then the narrative changes from Bernie kicks ass among young voters to Bernie does well only among young white liberals. That is a different story and a perfect lead into South Carolina, where once again, we can work to attract young voters of color. So I think Nevada is a real opportunity. Let me repeat that part in the middle. Bernie does well only among young white liberals. Now, is that true? No, even in that case in Nevada, he actually won Latinos. She won the state overall, and she won African Americans in Nevada, fair is fair. But Bernie won the Latinos. There's actually not much evidence to that effect at all. But Tom Perez was one of the original guys internally saying, let's say that Bernie only does well among young white liberals. Then when we go to South Carolina, which is heavily African American in the Democratic primary, we'll say, hey, remember, Bernie only does well with white people. Gee, I wonder where the smears came from in the beginning. Can't quite tell. Later in another email, Perez writes, in my Hillary Clinton advocacy, I now say how these people don't have the time to wait for Senator Sanders to complete his quest for the perfect healthcare system or the perfect immigration reform bill. In other words, let's tell minorities, Bernie Sanders wants you to have great stuff, great healthcare and great immigration, but that is somehow racist? Let's convince them that not working towards those goals is actually the pro-Latino, pro-African American, pro-minority position. Hey, remember, you don't have time for good solutions, so just bow your heads, accept our crappy solutions, and then we'll help use that to frame Bernie Sanders as only for white people. Gee, I wonder where the rumors came from about racial angles here and discontent. Couldn't be from a guy who already did that once before, right? Look, I don't even think Tom Perez is the guy. In terms of, I don't know if he planted this specific rumor. I do know that he was happy to frame issues like that during the campaign. Seems very, very happy to do it in the past. What I mean by Tom Perez is not necessarily the guy. Tom Perez is not the guy taking home hundreds of millions of dollars. If you've got about $800 million spent on a campaign through the Democratic National Committee, which you guys paid money for, and consultants are taking a percentage of that, 15, 25, no one knows because only Tom Perez and the finance person at the DNC knows. And they don't want to change that rule. God forbid you found out. And you found out, hey, 25% is going into the pockets of consultants. That would be $200 million. My guess is those guys, whoever they are highly motivated to smear everyone else. And if they need to use Tom Perez, well, then they use Tom Perez. And if they need to pretend that the other side is going after minorities, then they'll pretend it's going after minorities. Whatever they got to do to keep that gravy train going. Gee, I wonder why people are upset at the DNC. Not quite sure. If you can't figure this, and look, it's not that they can't figure it out. It's that they still don't understand that the internet exists. They think that's all right. We just do these smear jobs. We get our friends in the press to plant it as a story all over media. We'll get Morning Joe to get all huffy about it because Morning Joe's on our side. And we'll get all the TV pundits to be on our side. And they'll push, push, push. And nobody will find out. Wrong. We do find out. And we see what's going on. And we're not going to let you get away with it. So later, when people are angry at you, don't pretend you don't know why. Dirty tricks like this are exactly why people are furious with you, and they should be. For God's sake, support progressives who actually would like to defeat Republicans and not other progressives. But if these guys were progressive, they wouldn't do any of this stuff. They're corporatists. They just want the money. And if you try to get money out of politics, boy, then they are furious with you. Then you go, oh my God, that's a real change. No, everybody settle down. What you really want is a really, really small change. One that doesn't get money out of politics at all. One that certainly doesn't get money out of my pocket. Whether you like it or not, it's not just us, it's the audience, it's the progressives. We're all on to you. And we'll see you at the next election. Young Turks.
All right, we got a graphic incoming. Putting up 3, 2, 1. All right, video next. And next video. And power panel. And dropping it.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got them here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram?
Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah,
Come
the
on.
gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it so many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. But it helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag WokeBay.
Hashtag WokeBay. Please follow me. Please.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Kara Curley writes in, well, as an artist, big pens suck anyway, LOL. Matthew writes in, Tom Perez is Obama's guy. Of course he's gonna push out anyone who's going to be in favor of progressives. And Gabby says, for fuck's sake, have establishment Democrats learned nothing from 2016? Because it sure doesn't seem like it. Hashtag Justice Democrats. Guys, I understand your frustration, and obviously I'm very frustrated. But it isn't about learning. It's about protecting their money supply. So they're never going to learn to give up the $200 million, and that's obviously a very, very rough estimate. They're going to learn nothing at all. They're just going to fight you while pretending to be in favor of unity. They'll do anything to make sure that they torpedo progressives who would want to get money out of politics. And then they'll pretend they're the ones who want to sing Kumbaya. You guys are the bad guys for not bowing your head. So there's no learning. That's not what's going to happen. All right, Anna.
All right. Over the weekends, the New York Times published an extensive report detailing a gigantic settlement that Bill O'Reilly paid to a Fox legal analyst by the name of Liz Wheel to the tune of $32 million. Now, there has been a lot of commentary in regard to that piece, and some of that commentary actually comes from Megyn Kelly, who of course used to host a show on Fox News Channel. Now, when O'Reilly got word of that article by the New York Times, he claimed that no woman at Fox News ever complained about him to the Human Resources Department during his tenure at the network. Well, Megyn Kelly disagrees with that statement and addressed it on her show on NBC. Let's take a look at the first clip.
O'Reilly's suggestion that no one ever complained about his behavior is false. I know because I complained. It was November of 2016, the day my memoir was released. In it, I included a chapter on Ailes and the sexual harassment scandal at Fox News, something the Murdochs knew I was doing and, to their credit, approved. O'Reilly happened to be on CBS News that morning. They asked him about my book and about Ailes, who by this time had been forced out in disgrace. O'Reilly's response?
I'm not that interested in this.
No?
No, I mean, it's
sexual harassment? You're not interested in sexual harassment?
I'm not interested in basically litigating something that is finished that makes my network look bad, okay? I'm not interested in making my network look bad at all. That doesn't interest me one bit.
So she actually went to Human Resources at Fox News and complained after he made that appearance on CBS. And so she addresses the email that she sent to the executives, to Human Resources in regard to that appearance that he made. And we'll get to that in just a second, but did you want to jump in, Jake?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, look, first of all, this whole idea that nobody went to Human Resources is absurd anyway. He's paid, just on the stuff we know about, $45 million in settlements to 6 different women. Him and Fox News paid to those people. So you don't have to go to Human Resources if you got a $32 million settlement.
Yeah.
It's the worst excuse I've ever heard. And now Megyn Kelly is not saying that Bill O'Reilly sexually harassed her. She's saying, I went to Human Resources to complain about Bill O'Reilly, saying that it's all right to intimidate women who work here, who are complaining about sexual harassment, because she was one of the people that did get harassed, not by O'Reilly, but by others.
Yes, exactly. So she was upset at the fact that he kept pushing the notion that anyone who would go out and smear Fox News Channel was a bad person and that they shouldn't be listened to. And so she complained about that. So here is Megyn Kelly detailing the email that she sent to Human Resources at Fox News Channel complaining about Bill O'Reilly. Take a look.
I wrote an email to the co-presidents of Fox News, Bill Shine and Jack Abernathy. An email I have never made public, but am sharing now because I think it speaks volumes about powerful men and the roadblocks one can face in taking them on. I wrote in part, perhaps he didn't realize the kind of message his criticism sends to young women across this country about how men continue to view the issue of speaking out about sexual harassment. Perhaps he didn't realize that his exact attitude of shaming women into shutting the hell up about harassment on grounds that it will disgrace the company is in part how Fox News got into the decade-long Ailes mess to begin with. Perhaps it's his own history of harassment of women, which has, as you both know, resulted in payouts to more than one woman, including recently, that blinded him to the folly of saying anything other than, I am just so sorry for the women of this company who never should have had to go through that. Bill Shine called me in response to my email promising to deal with O'Reilly. By 8 p.m. that night, O'Reilly had apparently been dealt with. And by that I mean he was permitted, with management's advance notice and blessing, to go on the air and attack the company's harassment victims yet again.
Yeah, look, the idea that Fox News wasn't aware of what was going on, and golly gee, they got caught off guard, is preposterous. Roger Ailes had decades of sexual harassment claims against him, and Fox News had already settled all those lawsuits against Roger Ailes. Then they had Bill O'Reilly, not only 5 settlements in his case, but one very, very public with Andrea Macris that cost him $9 million. And then, as all of this is unfolding and now completely public to everyone, they go, oh yeah, Megyn, good point about the sexual harassment. Hang up on her, yeah, right. Like you think we're gonna take your side. No, we're on the other side. They've been protecting, there's a culture of sexual harassment because Roger Ailes ran it from the very beginning. He was the biggest sexual harasser, and he literally gave permission to other men at the company. They didn't all do it, okay? But some of them, like O'Reilly, did do it.
Right.
So the new people that are running it, meet the new boss just like the old boss. They go, yeah, O'Reilly, go get him. Attack the women who were harassed. And he did that night. Megyn Kelly showed a clip from that night, and O'Reilly had gone after them.
Right, exactly. And that is, a tactic to be expected from people like Bill O'Reilly. Go ahead and smear the accusers, try to discredit them in any way possible. And look, none of this should be surprising, right? I think that there was certain visible behavior at Fox News that had become so normalized that we didn't really, it should have raised more red flags. So for instance, can you imagine working at a place where your male bosses tell you, you're a woman, your male bosses tell you, you have to wear a skirt on camera. You have to wear a short skirt. We would see that all the time. And remember, we suspected that there was some sort of dress code forcing the women to dress that way. But then there was that Fox mole several years ago who came out and said, no, that's not just a rumor. That's fact. Women are forced to dress a certain way when they're on camera at Fox News.
Now later, other women, by the way, did confirm that work at Fox News and say we were not allowed to wear pants. They basically were forced to have men ogle at their legs.
That's right. Think about, and it became normalized. That's the part of it, and it was so normalized that I just bought into it. I thought it wasn't that big of a deal, but it is a big deal. I can't imagine anyone here telling me what I can and can't wear, right? If you came to me and told me you can only wear a short skirt and we're gonna do these wide shots where you see your whole body, I'd be like, yeah, bye, right? That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable in any other context. But with Fox News, everyone just kind of gave it a pass, like it's totally fine.
So we're making that point in showing you how brazen and obvious it was all along.
Right.
In reality, of course, some of the allegations against Bill O'Reilly involve non-consensual sex acts.
That's right.
So if you say, oh, well, the skirts, I don't know if that's a big deal. I'm pretty sure a non-consensual sex act is a big deal.
Right, and Liz Wheel, who was the legal analyst that was written about in the New York Times piece, said that there was a non-consensual sexual relationship involved. And by the way, $32 million is a lot of money to settle something out of court. I'm just saying.
It's not what you pay if you told her to wear something different than she wanted to wear, okay? That would be a problem. It wouldn't be a $32 million problem. $32 million problem is a massive, massive problem.
Yes. All right, so there's a second part to this story that I really want to get to. Following Megyn Kelly addressing Bill O'Reilly on her show and criticizing him rather aggressively, Bill O'Reilly decided to strike back by going on Glenn Beck's radio program. And here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Number one, she didn't file a complaint. Not that I know of. It was never brought to our attention that Megyn Kelly did anything. All right, so I'd like to see it because I don't believe that's true at all. Number two, what she does not say is that there's an anonymous hotline, and there had been for years at Fox News, where anybody could have called up and said, so-and-so is doing something to me, and you better stop it, all right? That's anonymous. Doesn't mention it. I never had any problem with Megyn Kelly. In fact, when she was getting hammered earlier this year, I wrote a column sticking up for her. I don't know why Megyn Kelly is doing what she's doing. I don't know why. I've helped her dramatically in her career. I gave her the name of her show, The Kelly File. She actually did a charity event for me. I mean, it is just incomprehensible.
He helped her out so much. He gave her the name of the show, The Kelly File. I mean, it took a very clever individual to come up with that name.
Yeah, and still she's worried about the sexual harassment she suffered at the hands of others, and she doesn't want other women at the company to suffer the same fate.
Ungrateful.
Despite the fact that he came up with the Kelly file.
And you know, what's amazing is that he did exactly what Megyn Kelly called him out on Glenn Beck's show. So he brings back these 2 letters, handwritten letters that Megyn Kelly allegedly wrote him, one dating back to 2009, the other dating back to 2012. He's like, look, we had a great relationship. She thanked me. The 2009 letter was following the birth of one of her children, and apparently he gave a gift or something like that, and so she thanked him for the gift. He's like, see? Besties, we've been besties forever. I don't know why she's doing this. And then the second one was after he promoted, O'Reilly promoted Megyn Kelly's husband's book after it was published. But anyway, again, he's trying to, smear her name and make it seem as though she's making things up. And it's just, that's exactly what she accused him of. So he's playing right into that.
And by the way, if I didn't know that somebody was a sexual harasser and they did something nice for me, and I wrote him a nice thank you notes. Later, that doesn't mean that when I find out there's a sexual harasser that note still applies, right?
No, it's crazy.
Right, like somebody might have given me a bottle of wine and I write them a nice thank you note, and it turns out later they're a murderer. That's not on me, I didn't know that, right? So what a preposterous defense. He has no defense. His main defense is my kids. And I talked about it earlier in the show. And he keeps saying, oh, he literally said they're putting my kids in the kill zone. Why are you bringing your kids into this, you maniac? Okay, why? He said it over and over and over again. Don't hide behind your kids, it's pathetic, it's gross. And then he goes to, well, technically no one complained to Human Resources. Then he goes to, well, yeah, okay, she might have been sexually harassed and I wanted to cover it up. But at some point when she didn't know that I was one of the bad guys, she wrote me a nice note. These are the world's worst defenses.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. And things are unraveling, and it's also very, very interesting to see, again, those on the right, like Glenn Beck, supporting those who have been ousted from a network after all of these allegations, and 6 different settlements, by the way. Look, I'm gonna go ahead and support my own, but then they'll openly criticize those who have liberal leanings. And they've been accused of similar sexual harassment and sexual assault. Which, by the way, doesn't matter what your political leanings are. Everyone who has done anything like this should be criticized. Just incredible how they protect their own.
Yep.
Anyway, we got to take a break. Let's do that. When we come back, pretty devastating story regarding journalists getting targeted throughout Eastern Europe. I'm super excited because we have different levels of members. They pay $10 a month, but there are some members that pay a little more. Our executive producers, for instance. My favorite thing about executive producers is that we have quarterly calls with them. I love that I'm getting a little transparency and I'm knowing what you guys like and dislike. Ideas on how to improve the show, topics that maybe we haven't heard of yet and you really want us to cover. We have so much respect for you because of the fact that you keep us independent and allow us to be uncensored, unfiltered, without worrying about corporate sponsors breathing down our necks and telling us what we can and can't say. So if you want to be a member, obviously no pressure. You can go ahead and join by going to tytnetwork.com/join. I'm gonna ask some uncomfortable questions. The first topic that I said that we would discuss a little more is masturbation.
And then I was swimming in a hazelnut river.
Are you sure you're not doing mushrooms? Oh my God, I can achieve an orgasm by myself.
Fuck that, I am gonna talk about it because there should be no shame around. I think a lot about death because I love life.
That openness led to amazing sex.
And I keep saying to everybody, oh, I gotta go call my wife. I figured that was a good excuse and people can't say, hey, don't call your wife. I'm gonna release bliss.
It's so weird because at that moment I felt bliss and it smelled like lavender.
At the end, you get to go check, nice job. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you too will rock the world.
Canal, he calls his work urban beautification.
I
didn't go out to be a street artist or to make posters. I was just compelled to do it. I was mad enough, it didn't matter. It was like a form of minor civil disobedience even. You're like, fuck you. How about your higher crime? Power operates to self-replicate itself, to maintain the status quo so it stays in power. When you go to do something like this to express yourself in public about an issue you care about, make sure you pick a bigger weapon, and the weapon is knowledge. The one thing about street art, it's not like I put up my posters to change anybody's mind about anything. The difference between propaganda and the kind of art I do is propaganda is telling people what to think. The way the art works, where the art works, is between the time you see it and the time you figure it out for yourself. I'm an optimist. I might have made a lot of ugly paintings about a lot of ugly people, but it's out of love, not for them.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Member shout-outs of the day are Joshua Smith and Julie Cameron. Joshua and Julie, thank you for making the show possible. We are going to do a wonderful post-game for you guys today. Who had a good topic? What was it?
I have a topic. I want to talk about business class.
Oh, business class.
Because I flew business class, like really flew business class for the first time, not because I paid for it. There's no way I'd ever pay for it.
Oh, I thought you meant like business class in school.
No.
Oh, no, as in the airplanes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, I have
We have to talk about it. We have to talk about it.
I have so many thoughts.
Okay, tytnetwork.com/join to get those thoughts. And wonderful shows like Aggressive, Progressive, and Old School. All right, Daniel Pareja writes in, Fox News makes Fox News look bad. No O'Reilly participation required. Gonzo Tokyo writes in, Jesus, the amount of money O'Reilly spent on payouts, he could have started his own online news show. That's true. Are you kidding me?
$32 million.
That's on one.
That's on one.
$45 million. What we could do with $45 million. All right, anyway, Mixed Pancake says, the irony is he sounds like Harvey. I made you and you're ungrateful.
Yeah.
He says, don't compare me to Harvey Weinstein. And then he sounds exactly like Harvey Weinstein. Yes, all right, what's next, Anna?
All right. Journalists throughout the world are under attack, and I'm not just talking about the United States, where you have a president who is essentially threatening to take broadcasting licenses away from outlets that criticize him. I'm talking about places like Russia, where just recently a journalist who was extremely critical of the Kremlin was stabbed in the neck. Her name is Tatiana Flegenauer, and she worked for a radio station known as Echo Moskvy. And Luckily, she has not died as a result of the attack. She is in critical condition. She was rushed to the hospital and received treatment, and she had to be placed in a medically induced coma. However, there is hope that she will survive. But again, she has been openly critical of the Kremlin, and we know that Putin has in the past targeted journalists and in some cases even allegedly murdered them for being too critical of the Kremlin. Now, Tatiana Flegenhauer, deputy editor-in-chief and co-host of a popular morning show for the station, was rushed to the hospital and has been breathing through a tube. The photos that I'm about to show you are graphic. They show a little blood, so I want to give you a little warning. But here are a few photos of the scene. Luckily, they were able to get the suspect in custody. He's a 48-year-old by the name of Boris Gritz. He lived in Israel since 2003 and actually returned back to Russia about a month ago. He has been telling authorities that he believes he had been communicating with the journalist telepathically.
So look, I don't believe that. So not that I don't believe that he was communicating that way. Of course he wasn't. I don't believe that that's his true motivation. It's way too convenient. This attack came a little less than 2 weeks after state-owned Russia 24 had called Eco Moskvy, where she works, a foreign agent, and Felgenhauer was specifically ID'd in the show.
Yes.
So they said, okay, she's the one who's doing this, and it's a foreign, and these guys are foreign agents. And then conveniently, right afterwards, a guy who happens to be telepathically communicating, so-called, with that particular journalist. Because if you're actually psychotic or having a breakdown, it could have been any journalist, it could have been a non-journalist. He happened to be psychotic about the same exact journalist that state-owned TV 2 weeks ago had said was the problem. No way. Along with the context of how many murdered and attacked journalists in Russia.
I know, exactly. There's a long list of journalists who have been targeted, who have mysteriously disappeared, who were mysteriously murdered in some way. A lot of these cases go unsolved. And so, the authorities are the ones that are saying that this man alleged that he was communicating with her telepathically. But who are we to believe what the Russian authorities have to say while they're investigating this case? Especially when you consider the large volume of journalists who do get murdered in Russia and the cases go unsolved. And so look, obviously there's a lot of speculation going on here because we don't know the exact facts of what happened. All we know is this 48-year-old man broke into the radio station, was able to get past the security guard by pepper spraying him in the face, and then immediately went into the newsroom and attacked this specific journalist by stabbing her in the neck. And again, luckily she survived, but she is in critical condition.
And this is not the first time one of their journalists has been targeted. Yulia Latnina has now fled Russia after a series of attacks. So if you are a Putin opponent, and it doesn't even have to be political, it could just be in the press, you point out things that he is doing wrong. Watch out, there's some chance that someone will for some reason try to murder you. But there's a lot of coincidences in Russia. Now, after Donald Trump's election, a bunch of diplomats died all mysteriously, all almost right away after the election. And one of the guys that was targeted, they said, oh, what an unlucky break. He was walking along in the street when a couch fell off a roof or something and hit, or out of a window and happened to crush him. Lots of unlucky breaks going around in Russia. So when Trump goes around saying that, oh, Putin is, what do you mean? He compliments me, he's a good guy. Putin is not a good guy.
No, Putin's a terrible person. And if you're in Russia and have the audacity to say that as a journalist, there might be some serious consequences, losing your life being one of them.
And sorry, two more things real quick here. One is, I can't compliment those brave Russian journalists enough.
Yeah.
I mean, the heart they have, the soul, the spirit that they have, knowing the dangers, to go out and criticize Putin in Russia. That's amazing. It's amazing courage. They're absolute heroes to the whole world. And for this guy, the suspect, tick, 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 tick. What happens in situations like this? Usually they get Lee Harvey Oswalded. So if that guy happens to die in custody, maybe he felt so bad he committed suicide, you shouldn't be surprised, I'm telling you ahead of time, because if he knows things, he's gotta go. I don't know if he was supposed to survive the attack or not.
Yeah, look, this is the reason why when we covered that poll that Politico did regarding the percentage of Americans who believe that the news just makes up stories about Trump, the reason why I lost it during the coverage of that story is because people in power don't like journalism. They don't like journalists because good journalists hold these elected officials accountable for their actions. They speak truth to power, which is why Putin has been known to target people who are critical of him. And then when you have Trump calling any news organization that's critical of him fake news and Americans buy it, that's really concerning, especially when they think that it would be okay for the government to take broadcasting licenses away from news organizations that the president considers fake news. That is a scary thing to consider, because if you don't have independent journalism, then you're screwed. Democracy no longer exists. People like Trump do not like to be held accountable. They don't like to be criticized. They want to pretend like everything they do is great, when in reality, a lot of what they do is destructive. And it's just scary to know that there is some percentage of Americans that think, yeah, the president should be able to revoke broadcasting licenses from certain organizations.
And when Donald Trump looked up to Daddy Putin when he was a civilian, okay, that's his prerogative, I don't care. But now that he's the president of the country, he has to understand what's in our Constitution. In our Constitution, we have freedom of the press. That means a lot to real Americans. Maybe not to the Russian government, but to Americans, it's all the difference. That's what the heart of this country is. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom. And if Donald Trump doesn't understand that, he's gotta go.
I wanted to give you guys one other example of a politician attacking journalists, this time in the Czech Republic. This is the president of the Czech Republic, Miloš Zeman. And he went to a press conference holding a replica of an AK-47, and on it, written on it, it said, for journalists. And he has been known to be incredibly harsh and cruel toward journalists. He has previously referred to them as manure and hyenas. And this is yet another example of a politician who can't handle anyone who dares to speak truth to power. This is the way that they react to it.
So unfortunately, there's a bunch of these maniacs throughout the world now. These guys with dictatorial tendencies, they take over governments, and then next thing you know, democracy's gone. We've seen that movie before too. And democracy is voting, of course, it's a huge part of it. But it also is other things like freedom of the press, freedom of speech, what makes Western democracy what is so great. So he also said when he was in May, when he was with Vladimir Putin, he joked that some of the journalists at the event need to be liquidated. When Putin, there are allegations and strong ones that Putin has actually liquidated journalists. That's not a funny joke. And then when you bring out an AK-47, when you say for journalists, and you've talked about getting rid of them before, not remotely funny or interesting, super, super dangerous. And this guy's also a lunatic, by the way. I mean, if that wasn't convincing enough, he believes, and he said this last year, that the Czechs need to arm themselves because of a potential super Holocaust that's going to be carried out by Muslims in the Czech Republic. I didn't know that there were that many Muslims in the Czech Republic. I didn't know that they were on the verge of winning electorally and then taking charge and then getting rid of democracy. I thought that was you guys. And then going around killing their opponents. A super Holocaust by the really powerful Muslims in the Czech Republic? These guys are absolute lunatics.
Well, yeah, and it's also ironic that he would make statements like that about anyone, right? When in reality, the real violent person is the individual who would show up to a press conference holding a replica of an AK-47 threatening journalists. I mean, think about that for a second. But one thing that I also want to point out is that, that stunt that he pulled with the AK-47 happened less than a week after another journalist died in a car bombing. So journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia, she was dubbed a one-woman WikiLeaks. Galizia had led an investigation into the Panama Papers and had recently revealed that Malta's prime minister was connected with offshore companies and the sale of Maltese passports and payments from the Azerbaijani government. So I don't know, what a coincidence, she died in a car bomb. So again, another journalist gets targeted, she's been murdered, okay, very clearly murdered. And less than a week after that happens, the president of the Czech Republic decides that it's a great idea to hold that replica AK-47, threatening journalists.
Galizia was in Malta and this in the Czech Republic, but it was clearly in the news in the Czech Republic and the president doesn't care at all. By the way, they elected a new prime minister in the Czech Republic and he is a billionaire populist. Oh boy, there are a lot of similarities here between what is happening throughout the world, and it is not good news for journalists, not good news for freedom of the press, or anyone who's interested in protecting Western democracies. Okay, we got to take a break here. tytnetwork.com/join to get the whole show. When we come back, there's a huge oil spill. They tell us it's no big deal. Of course, I don't know if you've even seen it in the news. And then $1,000 bagel. What on God's green earth could make you pay $1,000 for a bagel? We'll explain all that when we return online for the radio audience. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys, and I have no new tweets. Okay, we're moving forward. We got oil spills, we got babies, we got bagels. Go.
There has been yet another oil spill, and now it's being reported as the largest oil spill since the Deepwater Horizon spill that happened back in 2010. Now, this spill has occurred due to a fractured pipeline just 40 miles offshore Venice, Louisiana. And the initial reports in early October indicated that the spill was no big deal, not too much oil, don't worry, everybody just stop paying attention. However, new reports indicate that more oil was spilled than previously reported. So the update is that the total volume of oil discharge could be as much as 16,000 barrels or 700,000 gallons rather than the 9,000 barrels initially reported. So it's nowhere near as much as the Deepwater Horizon spill that happened in 2010, but it's still significant. 700,000 gallons of oil due to this fractured pipeline.
There's a lot of talk like trying to minimize it. They say it's 40 miles offshore from Venice, Louisiana. So, and it's the winds are blowing away from shore, so don't sweat it. No, we're sweating it. It's always a big deal when you accidentally spill 700,000 gallons of oil in the water, and some folks will say, okay, look, but come on, be reasonable, guys. This pipe was located 5,000 feet underwater, and it was discharged from a small crack in this jumper pipe letting. Okay, I'm sorry, jumper pipe, and okay, yeah, that's fair. That's why we warn you about leaks, because they're going to happen, and after they happen, they're going to say, "Well, I mean, but it was a small crack. What could we do?" Yeah, it led to 700,000 gallons of oil, like destroying whatever's nearby. But it didn't hit humans yet, so I'm sure it'll be fine.
I know it's just like a complete disregard for marine life, because no one's concerned with that whatsoever. And every report that I've seen on this has been fascinating in that it talks about how no one can see the oil on the surface, so everything's fine. It's 700,000 gallons of oil that's just been spilled into the ocean. Or, I mean, really, that's no ramifications whatsoever. And by the way, I just want to be clear about one other thing. You know, the estimates in regard to how many gallons of oil spilled into the ocean have been compiled by the very company that owns this pipeline, okay? So it's LLOG. That's the company that owns it. And so, like, do I trust them? No. I mean, I kind of want to multiply that number by 10.
That's literally what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I was going to interrupt you to say 10x it.
Yeah.
Okay, now we don't know that for sure, but here's what I'm not doing, taking the word of the company who committed the error in the first place. So this is in the Gulf, and when they say stuff like, don't worry, you can't see it, you know you're in trouble. What is that? I don't care if I can't, I also can't see cancer with my eyes. It's still there, right? And that's still a big problem. So it's a preposterous thing to say. And I remember doing the North Dakota Access standoff, Standing Rock, right? The company that was laying that pipeline was like, no, the Native Americans here, the environmental protesters here, and all the other people that are protesting, they're claiming that if we put a pipe underneath the water that at some point it's gonna leak. Of course that's not gonna happen. Then we showed dozens of leaks that had happened already near there with very similar pipelines.
Right.
And then this massive leak now, because you know why? You build giant pipes carrying oil underneath water, at some point they break. And at some point there's a leak. Sometimes it's a small leak, sometimes it's a gigantic leak, and sometimes like this, it does damage. But since you didn't see it with your own eyes, probably this is the last time you'll ever hear of it. And God knows the kind of damage that it did. But it's gonna happen because they leak. That's what happens.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about some lighter stuff. A hotel in New York City is selling a luxurious bagel topped with gold flakes for a mere $1,000. So this is the Westin New York Hotel in Times Square. And it will begin selling this $1,000 bagel, topped with Alba white truffle cream cheese,
Wow.
goji berry infused Riesling jelly, and gold leaf flakes for a limited time starting November 1st.
Oh, well, you better panic.
Okay.
There's a gold rush.
That combination, it just sounds disastrous anyway. But okay, let me continue. So why is this so expensive? Apparently it has everything to do with the truffles that they use for this bagel. White truffle grows almost exclusively in the Alba region of Italy, and most truffle hunters use trained dogs or pigs to find them buried near or next to tree roots.
They get almost $2,000 per pound of white truffle, to which I say, I do declare. Okay, Jesus, man, people are insane. So look, they describe the truffle as, I wouldn't know because I've never had it, slightly garlicky with a deep musky aroma. The garlicky sounds good. I don't know about the musky aroma. Okay, but then they describe another part of the bagel, which is the goji.
They should just call it the Middle Eastern bagel.
Okay, it's okay. We're from from the Middle East.
Like I honestly, when they said garlicky and musky, I thought of Armenian / Turkish / Lebanese / that food.
That's okay. So now goji berry infused Riesling jelly. Riesling. Okay, is apparently a blended fruit of aroma of cranberries, sour plums, cherries, and orchard fruits like Honeycrisp apples and pears. Well, if you just said that and you said, okay, I'm like, all right, it's a fruit medley, I get it. And you're putting it on cream cheese on a bagel, I'll eat it, right? I'm not gonna say no to a nice bagel, I'm gonna say yes, okay? If you say you are combining it with a musky aroma of a garlicky truffle thing, I'm like, no, those two don't go along. They don't go together.
Who knows? I mean, maybe we're wrong. Maybe the combination of garlicky, musky with sweet goji berries is great. I have no idea. Like the only thing that amazes me is how out of touch we are from this life, right? Like the idea of spending $1,000 on a bagel is insane to me. But here's the thing. At first, when I saw this, it enraged me, especially when you consider all the people living in poverty, people who don't have homes to go to, people who can't even provide for their kids, and then you have these people spending $1,000 on a freaking bagel. But apparently 100% of the proceeds will go to a pretty good charity. It's an important charity, Holy Apostles Soup Kitchen, the largest emergency food program in the city. So it seems like they're doing this more for charity than anything else. And maybe people buying the bagel are doing it because they want to donate to the charity.
No way.
I don't know. I'm trying to look at
You're way too good-hearted liberal. Let me explain what's happening, okay? So they're doing it for the marketing. So yes, I believe them that they're not keeping the proceeds. That would, if they were lying about that, would be Trumpian, right? And they're a giant corporation. I don't think they want to get caught with their hand in the bagel jar. So I suppose that's true, but they're doing it for marketing so that they'll get to charge more for other stuff. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. And the people buying the bagel are probably the single most unbearable people on the planet. I don't know that they even know that it's going to charity. And even if you wanted to do the musky garlic with the whatever berries, okay, what do you need the gold flakes for? I mean, looking at, I don't know if those are the gold flakes or I guess they are. I don't want to eat that. That sounds like could like cut up my throat or something. Why would you want to eat gold?
That won't cut up your throat.
I don't know. I don't care. I'm not going to risk it. I'm certainly not going to pay $1,000 for it. The people who pay $1,000 for a bagel are people who can't wait to tell other people that they paid $1,000 for a bagel. And that's what makes them absolutely unbearable.
Okay, there's one last story that I want to do, and I'm going to try to do it without getting emotional, because the first time I watched this video, I got emotional. Charlotte Keene is a baby that was unfortunately born with a hearing issue. Charlotte was born with bilateral profound congenital hearing loss. Now, I don't know what that is, but apparently she can't hear. And unfortunately, she is not expected to recover or get cured. However, doctors gave her hearing aids so it could amplify whatever sound she can hear. And for the first time, she was able to hear her own mother's voice. Her mother decided to post the video of this interaction on social media. It went viral, and after you watch it, you'll completely understand why. Take a look.
Yeah. Hello. Hello. I never seen that face before. Hi. Are you emotional? You're gonna make me cry. Hi. Is there a little chin? Hi. Yeah, are you gonna be emotional like your mama? Yeah. You're so sweet. Yeah. 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 I love you. I love you.
Okay, so sometimes babies make faces and then people overinterpret.
No, I think she understood what was going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're definitely emotional right now.
No,
okay.
I'm not.
Okay.
I have no emotions. I'm a strong woman with no emotions.
Okay, all right. It's okay to be strong and emotional at the same time. It could be a series of amazing coincidences of the smiling and then the like almost crying, etc. But the one part is definitely a coincidence. When she says "I love you" and the baby goes, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it knew." It doesn't know. It doesn't speak English yet. She doesn't know. She doesn't know what "I love you" means. She could maybe pick up the tone of a voice and be amazed that she heard her mother's voice.
Yeah.
I totally believe that. But like "I love you," like, oh, no, that's just a coincidence that she happened to make that face at that time.
So her mother, Christy, says, "I had never in my life seen that face before. I'm her mother, and I know the look in her eyes when she's sad, upset, or hurting, and that connection and that moment when our eyes met and she heard my voice for the first time, that was true emotion from her."
That part I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at me, like the cynic on the most lovely story of all time.
It really is. It really is. It made me so happy. And by the way, the reason why Charlotte was able to get those hearing aids is because people pitched in and donated in order for the family to be able to afford it. The family's now considering some sort of hearing implant that will actually really allow her to hear, because the hearing aid that she has right now only amplifies what little sound she can hear. But the hearing aid would actually improve her ability to hear much better.
Okay. Look, I'm a hard-hitting journalist, so I got to keep my wits about me and really dissect the story. So the other day, somebody sent me a picture of their baby smiling, and I was like, "Whoa, what a pretty smile." She's like, "No, he can't really smile yet. I think he was pooping." So yeah. That also happens. I'm just saying.
You're the worst. Okay, just. It was a nice story. Cenk ruined it. Just ignore him and let's move on.
Beautiful baby, and I hope they're okay. And by the way,
big beautiful baby.
She was a beautiful, gorgeous
facial
baby.
Expression. I've never seen facial expressions like that before.
Okay, by now I feel even worse bringing him into the story.
Yeah.
Anyway, super last thing, hashtag science.
Yeah, that's what I actually wanted to talk about until you derailed the conversation into like sad territory.
I don't know if ghouls and goblins exist. I don't know if sky gods exist, or the underworld, or the heaven above, or anything like that. I do know science exists, and it is miraculous, and it helps people find these wonderful, wonderful moments, and I hope they can make it last forever.
Yep.
All right, see? I'm not soulless, I believe in science. Okay, we're out of time, folks. I remember what I was gonna do, so maybe tomorrow in the post game we'll discuss things that will make you swing wildly on the issue of whether to have kids or not. This story triggered it for me. Okay.
Okay. Maybe we could talk about it a little bit today.
Okay, so in some of these post games we'll do that, and we'll talk about business class. I'm now very curious as to your opinions on that. tytnetwork.com/join to get those post games and everything we offer for you ad free. Bye bye.